that night though was just electric. The stadium shaking. I swear that stadium moved that night.
Yeah, no, that was any West Ham fan I speak to be honest with you, always looks back on that game as one of the best games that was ever played at Upton Park. I thought for large parts of that game we were the better team. Fortunately, someone called Steven Gerrard was playing, and that's why it all changed and went wrong.
Yeah, and unfortunately there was someone else called Scaloni playing as well. Yeah, was he as bad as the myth, if you like, of Pardew? You just called him chocolate because he loved himself and whatnot. Was he that bad, or has it been?
No, he wasn't that bad at all. He did like himself. There's nothing wrong with a bit of confidence, and it's just you get a problem when it turns into arrogance, don't you? Then that's the issue.
And you said it went wrong really quickly. Why? Why is it going wrong really quickly?
Good question.
195 appearances, 18 goals, 2 playoff finals, 1 FA Cup final, and Hammer of the Year, Matty Etherington. How are you doing tonight, Matt?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Thank you for joining us. You ready to discuss your time at West Ham? 5.5 years to get through.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, happy to.
Right, well, you came August 2003. You joined from Spurs. How did that move come about?
Things weren't going that well for me at Spurs at the time. So Glenn Hoddle was the manager, and I think I made between 40 and 50 appearances, but it just wasn't. I just didn't feel as I was getting a fair crack of the whip, to be honest with you. I was starting games, but Christian Ziege was in my position at the time. Hoddle used to like playing wing backs, and whenever he was fit, he was straight back in the team, regardless of how well I played. So I wanted to move on. The club were happy to let me move on, and obviously I was make weight in the deal with Freddie Canute going the other way.
So how does it happen? Does Glenn just take you to the side one day and say West Ham are up for you?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I think they were looking to get to Canute. Like I said, I'd done okay there, but I didn't think I was realising my full potential really. So he said, "Do you fancy it?" And yeah, jumped at the chance. So worked out well for me in the end.
Does it make a difference to a footballer when you're used as part of the deal for another player that they want? So obviously Spurs want Canute, and you were used to do you know what I mean? You were part of a bargaining chip, if you like. Does that change anything as a footballer?
I was still young, really. I was only 21, 22, so I just wanted to really make my way in the game and make a name for myself in the game, and I didn't feel as I was doing that at Tottenham. And obviously West Ham had just been relegated, so it was Championship football, which didn't bother me really, and I just wanted to get out and play regular first team football. That was probably the biggest thing that I needed and that I wanted at that age. So it didn't really make a difference to me being a mate wake in the deal.
Right, you obviously went to West Ham, just relegated. A lot of the bigger players or the better players were leaving at that point. What was it like when you first went into the changing room?
I didn't really go for the pre-season. I joined about a week or two before the start of the season. I think the first game was Preston away. So I didn't really see all of that happening, and I think a lot of it happened post-season and obviously in pre-season as well. So I was just there with what was left really. Obviously there's still some very good players like Michael Carrick and Jermaine Defoe were still there, so it was just it's about the squad. And I went in there and knew that squad was more than good enough to get us out of the Championship.
Glenn Roeder's manager, particularly you spoke to him before you joined, signed on the line, but he wasn't there for long while you were there.
Obviously, he had that really bad illness, and he was just coming out the other side of that at the time. And I went round to his house. Lovely man, really good man. But you could just tell really that he probably lost his way a little bit with the illness and everything that had happened. It was just a little bit too much for him. So yeah, wasn't there for that long really.
Well, what was it like playing under Roeder in the few games that you did? What was training like in that? What was he like as a manager?
He was good. Obviously, he's got a wealth of experience in the game. So he was fine. Obviously, there's a lot of preconceptions about him and him as a manager. But for me, I take people as I find them, and he was good. His training was fine. And obviously, then Trevor Brooking took over. The legend that is Trevor Brooking, just as he left, really, just after him as a caretaker role. His
last game manager West Ham was Rotherham. He's got changed in the coach that day, did you, before the game?
Yeah, they didn't think that the changing rooms were suitable enough for us and all the backroom staff, support staff we have and that. So yeah, we got changed. Well, we put most of our gear on in the hotel, and then we got boots on, pads on, and that in on the coach. And obviously Rotherham changed grounds now, but it was tight, the change room area, and obviously with all the support staff we had, probably not the right thing to do. If I'm being honest, it sets the wrong tone to the opposition, gives them even more scope to go out and beat you and want to beat you. So yeah, not probably the wisest idea to do that.
Who makes the call to get changed at the hotel? Was it Roder and his coaches that comes in and say, right, we're going to get changed here? And as a player, are you okay with that? Or are you thinking this is a bit mental, isn't it?
Yeah, you find it strange. Obviously, everyone creatures of habit. You want to get changed in the change room, but it didn't probably sit right with the players, and it's probably not the right mentality to be going into before a game. Players have their rituals, what they want to do before a game, etc. So it probably throws all that out of sync.
And then obviously Pardew come in. You enjoyed your time under him, but he tried to get you before West Ham, didn't he? When he was at Reading, did he try and get you? Was he looking at possibly bringing you to Reading when he was the manager there?
There was talk of a loan move at the time, I think. So yeah, he'd been aware of me, I think. So yeah, and when he first came to the club, he was brilliant for me personally. He said, I've seen the first half a dozen games that you've played, and you've done very well. And he goes, and I'm going to look to really play to your strengths and build the team around you a little bit, and obviously with Carrick and Defoe as well. So it's obviously the player, something you want to hear, and I played some of my best football in my career under him.
Yeah, what was he like as a manager? Because I think from other ex-players we've spoken to, people seem to think he was brilliant.
There's some players that don't think he's that good, but I thought he was a very good manager, tactically fine, good manager. And yeah, I was very impressed with him, to be honest with you. I think when players say good or bad things about managers, you've got to take it with a pinch of salt. At times, usually when players are saying bad things about the managers because they didn't really play them and they didn't get on or whatever, it doesn't mean that they're a bad manager. And that's Pardew was a good manager, and his results spoke for themselves in the early part of his career, definitely.
Yeah, was he as bad as the myth, if you like, of Pardew? You just called him chocolate because he loved himself and whatnot. Was he that bad, or has it been?
No, he wasn't that bad at all. He did like himself. There's nothing wrong with a bit of confidence, and it's just you get a problem when it turns into arrogance, don't you? Then that's the issue. And I think he had good success as a manager, Alan Pardew, and obviously he'll be the only one to answer it. But maybe he believed in his own success a little bit too much towards the end. But as I had him at West Ham, he was a very good manager for me.
Yeah, that first season there, West Ham obviously expected to probably win the league to an extent. Did you feel the pressure of that as a player, that you were expected to be the best team in the league?
Oh yeah, definitely. It was tough to adjust to, even though I adjusted quite quickly. And in my first season, obviously, like you said earlier, I got Hammer of the Year. The sense of expectation from the fans and their want to get out of the Championship as quickly as possible, and ideally by winning the league. You could tell that every weekend at home and at the Bowl Inn and in front of 35,000 people, they were expecting you to win, and you had to deal with that pretty quickly, to be honest with you. And I think we struggled at times to deal with that pressure. But ultimately, we didn't get over the line the first year, but the second year we did with a playoff final win.
Yeah, when you got to the playoffs the first year, though, that game against Ipswich, I'm going to fanboy a little here. That's probably one of my favourite ever games as a West Ham fan. I was still at school then, and a lot of my friends they're Man United fans up here. They're all used to winning the Premier League, and there I was supporting a Championship team. And then that night though was just electric. The stadium was shaking. I swear that stadium moved that night.
Yeah, no, that was any West Ham fan I speak to be honest with you, always looks back on that game as one of the best games that was ever played at the Upton Park. And yeah, it was definitely a massive highlight in my career. The feeling I got when I scored the goal is a feeling that didn't get too often in my career, to be honest with you. So it was a special night. Just a shame that we couldn't get over the line in the final.
When you score goals like that, are you able to take it in on the night, or is it sort of the adrenaline's going through you, and it's not till maybe the next day or 2 or 3 days later where you actually think, what a goal, what a noise that was?
It was hard because obviously we had a final to prepare for straight afterwards. I think it more sinks in once you've retired, really, and people mention that goal. Then I replay it and look at it, and it still gives me a really good feeling now. So I didn't really probably realise at the time, how special that night was, because you're ultimately concentrating on the next game straight afterwards. But I definitely do now, and looking back on it, a brilliant memory.
When you won that night, like you say, you're preparing for the final, did you think it was, I don't want to say a case of turning up, West Ham turning up and going up, but was there a feeling of, we're going to win this now, we're going to go back up, we're going to go up at the first time?
Yeah, there was. I think maybe a little bit of overconfidence because we'd beaten a really good Ipswich side in the semi-final. We had some good players at that level, so we did think that we'd more or less done it. And then that's a dangerous mindset to be in. So, and ultimately on the day in the final was, we didn't turn up. We were poor, probably one of our worst performances of the season, and Crystal Palace beat us.
What's the feeling like after that playoff final? Because it's a long old season in Championship, 46 league games, and then you've got the 3 in the playoffs as well on top of that, so 49 games, and you're looking at another season in the second division of English football. What was it like as a footballer? Obviously, you're disheartened, but
yeah, it was tough. It was really tough to get over that, to be honest with you. And the club were hugely dependent on us going up in that second season financially. So there was that added pressure, as well as the pressure from the fans, which was justified. So that next season, the Championship, everyone says it is a tough league. And we didn't really want to play in it again the season after, and we were. So we had to adjust. We had to adjust mentally to it, and really, focus ourselves on another really hard season. That was it. It took a bit of time to get over, to be honest.
Yeah, disappointing for West Ham as a team, but yourself though, you won Hammer of the Year. I mean, you must be pretty happy with your personal progress, if you like, in that 12 months.
Yeah, no, coming from Tottenham to West Ham's never easy. I realised that I had to really hit the ground running to get the fans on side, and I managed to do that throughout the course of that season. So that was good, and to get that award with all the names that are on it was a really special moment for me. Obviously, it would have been even more special when I'd gone up, but from a personal point of view, loved it. Loved the season, loved the club. And really felt at home at the time. So yeah, it was a good season for me personally, and from a performance point of view, it went well.
How important is winning that award though? Because sometimes I wonder if we as fans see it as sort of more important than what the players do. I mean, you're a winner, so it's potentially a bit different for you because you've won it. Maybe those that have come in and not won the Hammer of the Year award and left might not really look at it as a stature. But for a player, is it important to win Hammer of the Year?
I think as a player, you'd like to win it. I wouldn't say it's the be all and end all, but I definitely think as a player, winning that award, like I said, with the prestige behind it, it is a really big achievement, and one still to this day that I'm really, really proud of. So, the like I said, some of the names when I got the trophy and I was told of some of the people that had won it. It kind of takes your breath away, really. So to be in that company, albeit for a little while, was fantastic.
Were you ever tempted to try and move that summer because you've just had a really good season? You're still in your early 20s, but you're at that age where it's time to really kick on with your career, aren't you? And West Ham are in the Championship for another season. Were you ever debating trying to get back to the Premier League?
There was a couple of clubs that come in for me or inquired, but I think, and they were told in no uncertain terms that I wasn't for sale. And I just think with what was on the line, and at that time I was a key player in the side, the club were desperate to keep me. So, and I was happy to be there, to be honest with you. I really enjoyed my first year, my first season. You just get a sense of how big the club actually is when you're playing for them. The away support we have, and obviously at home every week, fill up. Stadium was full. It was brilliant, and you just knew you were a big club. And if we did manage to get into the Premier League, then hopefully we could do really good things.
Second season, though, a bit better. Big signings, good signings made. Pardew's football was sexy, if you like. Champagne football, if you want. We were seeing at West Ham a bit more. What was the difference between the second season and the first season, or was it much the same for yourself?
No, not a lot really. It was just a tough league, and you strive for that consistency on a game-to-game basis, and we just struggled really to find that. And just I think that season we just sneaked into the playoffs. But we were easily the top 6 best sides in the league. But there was an expectation, like I said earlier, but also teams were playing West Ham United in the Championship, and it was a big game for them. So we always had to deal with that side of it as well. But in terms of the way we played, maybe we played a little bit better, but I wouldn't say there was a huge difference from the season before.
You got to the playoffs again. What were you thinking? Were you thinking, oh, here we go again? Or were you feeling more confident this time round, given the experience the first season? Or
I definitely think that experience helps. I think that definitely helps you going through the same experience again. Maybe what you did differently, or you can do better next time from a personal point of view, of your preparation, from a team point of view, from the manager's side of it. Well, how can he prepare his team? What didn't maybe we do that we should be doing now? So there was definitely that aspect to it that we learned from, and we'd been there before, so that helped.
The second playoff final, though, Preston this time round. What's it like? A footballer's day leading up to that. Do you just go about your normal business, or is there a bit more nerves than usual?
Yeah, there's definitely more nerves, especially when like I said, the club needed to go up. Financially, they were in a little bit of trouble, so they needed to go up. The parachute payments were going to stop pretty soon, so it was a huge game, and we were told that in no uncertain terms by the owners and by the manager. So it was a nerve-wracking game. They are playoff finals. I've played in 2 of them, and if you lose, you're in a bad place, and supporters are for a while after getting over it after a long hard season. So just thankfully we managed to get it done.
You set up the winner as well, though.
Yeah, set up a winner for Bobby. Just picked him out really and touched behind him, but he just swiveled on it and put it into the corner. And obviously an unbelievable feeling that was, and leading into that then afterwards and the celebrations. And then obviously knowing that we're back into the Premier League where West Ham are meant to be. So that was good. It was a big achievement. It was a huge sigh of relief as well.
With Jimmy Walker in the team, it must have been party time that night after winning.
Yeah, Jimmy knew how to party, definitely. Yeah, we celebrated because there was huge pressure on all of us. So we celebrated, and we celebrated well.
That's good. Who's the other main culprits apart from Jimmy?
Teddy loved the night out, as everyone knows. Everyone enjoyed themselves. It was time to let your hair down, so to speak, and just really enjoy the moment and enjoy it with your teammates and your families.
Was Pardew much of a dancer that night? We saw him at Palace, didn't we, his manager on touchline when he did his dance.
He could put it away. Cards as well, to be fair. So yeah, it was a good time. You got to remember those times, because there's plenty of bad times as well.
Yeah, the second now up to the Premier League now. Expected to struggle a little bit, West Ham, but we had a young, hungry team and what seemed like at the time a very good manager at the helm. What was it like as a player going into that? Did you appreciate going from the expected to win the league almost to expected to go down? Was the pressure change different, and did that help you?
I just feel as though, and you have to give Pardew some credit here, the way he recruited, the way the club recruited, it was players that had something to prove. Maybe either coming up through the leagues, striving to play in that Premier League, myself striving to play in the Premier League on a regular basis and play week in, week out. And you had the older head like Teddy, but you had Rio Coker, Harewood, myself, Hayden Mullins, Anton Ferdinand, Danny Gabardon, James Collins, all players that had played at lower levels, but really wanted to prove themselves in the Premier League. So there was a lot of hunger in the squad. It was a young squad. It was quite dynamic, and we had some very good players as well, like Yossi Benayoun and Teddy. Complemented everybody really well. So it was a really good team, I thought.
That season, though, was sort of all about the FA Cup final eventually, isn't it? I mean, that's probably doing a bit of a discredit to the league because we did very well in the league, played good football. Exciting times at West Ham, but the FA Cup final comes about, but you nearly missed it.
Yeah. I was in training, we were playing 11-a-side at the ground, at the stadium, and gone down the line. Christian Daly was right back, and I've gone down the line and got a yard on him and just about to cross the ball in the box, and he's just come in and my left foot was planted, and as it planted, he's come in my ankle. He's come in on my ankle. My ankle's gone. Tore ligaments in my ankle. About 3 weeks before, thought I'd broken it first, but luckily I hadn't. And so it's usually a 6, 7, 8 week injury. So I thought my chance of playing in the cup final was gone, but I literally 24/7 treatment. Was going in hyperbaric chambers, which helps the bruising, gets that out really quickly. I was having loads of injections in it on a consistent basis to try and strengthen the ligaments up. And I trained about a day before the cup final, and Pard said, if you're fit, you're playing, and it was heavily strapped. I had painkilling injections in there as well. So of course I was going to play. Just worried about how fit I was, but luckily I was doing lots of swimming and non-weight bearing stuff, leg squats, etc., to keep my legs strong. And I actually felt okay in the final, to be honest with you. But yeah, to get there was hard work, but obviously more than worth it.
Yeah, them Scottish people, ridiculous, aren't they?
He didn't mean it. I was in the hospital when he called me straight away, and he was gutted. To be fair to him, he's a good lad, Christian.
Yeah. What's the build up of the day like then? You're out at Cardiff. Is there different nerves to a playoff final? Although it's played at the same venue, and that is it different?
Maybe a little bit different. Obviously, huge underdogs playing a Liverpool side that were winning trophies, and yeah, that there wasn't as much pressure. It was more of a enjoy the moment kind of thing, whereas you couldn't really enjoy playoff finals. So it was one of them. The shackles were off, so to speak, and go out and show what a good side we are, because we had played some really good football that season. So I thought for large parts of that game we were the better team. Fortunately, someone called Steven Gerrard was playing, and that's why it all changed and went wrong.
Yeah, and unfortunately there was someone else called Scaloni playing as well. But you came off 5 minutes from the end or whatever. Did you think we'd won it when you come off the pitch? Were you thinking?
Yeah, I did, especially after Conch had scored that goal, and no matter what he says, it was definitely a cross. And I did. I thought we were going to go down in history at West Ham United. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be, and that really was a tough one to take. But you can't really fault the players. It wasn't a case of we didn't turn up on the day. I thought it was a really good team performance, and we more than matched a good Liverpool team.
So, but eventually over the summer, when you go away, break up, are you thinking as a player, we're on to something here at West Ham? We've just come up, we've got to the FA Cup final. Yes, we've lost it, but we've now got European football. Once we get back going, we've got the chance of getting into European football. Were you feeling good about the club as well as yourself at this point?
I was, yeah. It's amazing how quickly it went wrong the following season, but you couldn't not feel that the club were in a very good place after that cup final. Like you said, we were just about to go into Europe. I'll go back to it. We had a young, hungry squad that had a lot of improvement in them, and were improving game by game, week by week. And there was a lot to like about us as a team. I think we all worked very, very hard for each other. And like I said, there was ability in there as well, and there were some really, really good performances against top teams. So you'd have had to have been really optimistic about the season ahead.
You said it went wrong really quickly. Why? Why is it going wrong really quickly?
Good question. I honestly don't know. Obviously, the Tevez and Marano deal happened, which shook everybody. To be honest with you, that it was like, what's going on here? But it was a statement by the club. But I didn't think, I think when you're recruiting, you recruit for a purpose and positions that are needed to strengthen. Didn't know whether it was a signing for that or just a signing to get West Ham's name out there, and they're buying two young up and coming Argentinian superstars. I didn't see the exact science behind it, to be honest with you. But they were good players, very good players. Obviously, Tevez showed up towards the end of that season and had a massive hand in us staying up. And Mascherano didn't really play that often, which is beyond me why he didn't, but he didn't. So it was, it just threw everything really. Maybe some players started believing in their own hype after that brilliant first season. And it's always hard to go and replicate that the next season. And, only the top teams go and do it. And it's down to the manager as well, I suppose, to really make sure and harness, that good thing we've got going and keep it going into the next season. It's not always easy managing everybody. And there was probably a number of factors.
In December, Pardew left. I don't think it's any secret. I know we've already spoken about it, but I don't think it's any secret. Is it fair to say he's your favourite West Ham manager when you were at the club? What was it that made you like him so much or get on with him so well?
His man management skills are very good. And like I said, he was just a good manager. He was tactically more than capable. The sessions were good. And he had success. Got to remember that the 3 seasons in a row, the fans had a day out at the Millennium Stadium. And obviously, 2 of those days didn't end the way we wanted it to end, but they were still really good times for the football club. And he got us into Europe as well. So, he can't be a bad manager by doing that. So he was a decent manager.
Do you think he deserved longer to turn it around?
Probably, if I'm honest. But ultimately, you'd have to say that the club made the right decision because we stayed up. But I'd like to think that Pardew would have kept us up. But that wasn't to be. I think us as players probably let him down a little bit towards the end of his time there, and ultimately that's why he got the sack.
Curbs come in, and in January we started really bringing in some big names and big wages and stuff. Does that disrupt what was prior to Pardew leaving? It seemed from the outside looking in, it seemed like a really good atmosphere at the club and among the first team then.
Yeah, we had a really good team spirit with that group that had come up through the Championship together and then into the Premier League, and those 2 seasons were really successful. And yeah, it can disrupt it sometimes. And like I said, I genuinely thought that if it was managed right and the players were focused, then that team could have gone on and improved and got even better. But that wasn't to be, and it was basically ripped up to a large extent.
Lucas Neal come in. What sort of impact did he have on the changing room?
Lucas was good. He was a good impact. Lucas was a very, very good professional, good player, obviously. But that was a good signing because he kept the players together. He expected certain standards throughout the dressing room and training ground, etc. So no, Lucas was a good signing.
Were those standards there before Lucas come? With the dressing
room?
No.
I don't know. They were there, but they weren't there anymore, and that's probably part of the problem. The dressing room seemed probably self-managed itself a little bit, whereas Lucas came in and was really the senior figure that all the players went to. It was a different change room under Lucas to what it was previously.
We stayed up, winning at Old Trafford. You weren't involved then. What's it like as a player watching, let's call it the Great Escape? You're witnessing the Great Escape, but you're on the sidelines as such. Is that a bitter pill to swallow?
Not really, no. I'd had an injury going into it, and I wasn't playing that much under Curbs. He brought Luis Barramorte in, so I was just absolutely delighted for the boys, to be honest with you, that they'd managed to do it, because there was a lot on the line, obviously. So to do it at Old Trafford was an unbelievable achievement, and I was there on the day, and yeah, I was absolutely buzzing for the chaps.
Do you know when you spoke about the playoff final, you said about how sort of there was pressure from above about getting into the Premier League. Did you have the same pressure for staying in the Premier League?
Yeah, definitely. The Premier League's, the holy grail, isn't it? There's so much money involved in it now, and the clubs know that, and that's where they want to be, because ultimately, if the club's in the Premier League, then they're earning lots of money. So, that's what it all boils down to, unfortunately. But that is as black and white as it is. The club were desperate to stay in the Premier League, because once you get out of it, it's not a guarantee that you'll ever get back into it or get back straight away, as you can see with many clubs that have happened to. So, yeah, it was a big game, and you do realise the pressure from all sides, really.
Yeah, Tevez gets a lot of the credit for us staying up here. Like, it's almost like the Tevez escape, if you want. But do you think it's not misjudged, but almost unfair on the others who played a massive part? Had Rob Green, Bobby Zamora, Lucas Neal come in and did his shift as well. Do you think it's almost a bit unrecognised what others contributed because of Tevez?
Obviously, Tevez is a superstar, isn't he? So he's going to get a lot of it, a lot of the credit, and rightly so. Like I said, for that last 8, 9, 10 weeks, he was sensational. But Bobby played a huge part, like you said, and there's other players that did as well. So they also deserve the credit. And I'm sure, the more hardened West Ham fans, the ones that, were there week in, week out, will realise that as well.
The 2007-2008 season, Kirbish's pool season, he didn't feature too much. Did you enjoy your football that season?
Oh, really? No. Everyone's got managers that they liked or thrived under. Kirbishley wasn't a manager that I thrived under, unfortunately. So it is what it is. His record was good. His record was good at Charlton as well. But it just didn't work out for me. And that was fine. I trained as hard as I could. Obviously, I had my off-field problems that I've spoke about hundreds of times, and then that was a factor as well. But on the whole, it was just down to the manager was picking players ahead of me, and that happens in football. There's nothing you can do about it. So, and that's what it was.
Was there anything in particular about him that you didn't really get on with, or was it, did he just decide not to play you?
No, we didn't have an argument or anything. There was nothing like that. Just we just didn't really click. We didn't connect. Get some managers that you really warm to straight away. That wasn't the case with Curbs. And like I said, got no gripes with him whatsoever. He didn't argue or anything. It just didn't work out for us.
What did you make of his Bentley boy culture comment he made in their conference once upon a time?
I didn't think he needed to make that comment, to be honest with you. It may have been true, but I didn't think he needed to say that to the media. And if he did think that, then he should have addressed the players personally in a group and spoke about his concerns. To do it to the media didn't really set the right tone.
Does it impact the dressing room when a manager goes against the grain a little like that?
Yeah, it does. It does. And there was a few boys, because obviously we knew he was talking about, and there was a few boys that weren't happy with it. So it was. I just didn't think the comment needed to be made, to be honest, and that was a disappointing thing.
When he resigned, not too long after, he was for reasons of transfer market, really. But was it like silver lining on a cloud for you when Kirbishley resigned? Were you thinking, here we go, I've got a fresh start here?
You're never happy to see any manager go, but like I said, we didn't see eye to eye. But it didn't, not in the terms where we were falling out, but we didn't see eye to eye, and he didn't fancy me as a player. And like I said, that happens.
Yeah, Zola comes in though, and back in the team, and you're playing quite well.
Yeah, Zola come in with Steve Clark. Their training was really, really good, really forward thinking, and he played Carlton up front, and he wanted to play two inverted wingers, so it was a different position for me, playing inside in the pockets, and one that he thought I could play, and I played it really well. I started off with him scoring a few goals, and really enjoying my football again. So I was really pleased when he came in.
So where did it peter out, if you like, under Zola?
Just through to nothing to do with Zola, really. It was to do with me. I was in a bad place mentally with my gambling issues, and I basically wasn't 100% focused on my football at that time, which is, it's not easy to say, but that's the truth, and that's where it got to for me. So Zola saw that, and he obviously he couldn't pick a player that wasn't 100% focused on his football. So that's probably, well, that is the reason why I didn't start playing in the team after that.
Do you think Zola was right to do that or not? I mean, did you feel like it was impacting you as a player?
No, he was right to do that, definitely. I'd had back issues and that, and he was taking time with me one-to-one to do yoga sessions with him and that, and I was doing them, but not doing them all the time. And the focus wasn't there because my mind was as well elsewhere, and all the trouble I was getting into with my gambling really affected me at that time. So I'd have done the same thing if I was him.
How involved did Zola get with you, like off the pitch? Because we had Jack Collison on here a month ago or something, and he was saying Zola he wants to know everything about you. He wants to know your dog's name, and then when you come in, he will ask you about your kids, your family life, and if you go away on holiday and you come back, Zola will ask you how your holiday to such and such was, and he just knows everything about everyone. That's sort of the culture he brought into West Ham. So, given your off the field stuff, does Zola massively try and get involved in that and take you under his wing a little bit?
He did, yeah. Well, like I said, he was doing. I had back issues, and he was taking me on his own and doing one-to-one yoga sessions with me. So he was investing time into me, which is a brilliant trait for a manager to have. And I wasn't always reciprocating with the time that he wanted to spend. Just basically trying to help me be a better footballer. But like I said, I wasn't in the right mind space at that time. But he was a brilliant man. And I actually thought he'd go on and do really well as a manager, but obviously things didn't work out quite as well as he'd want.
How did you feel the support from the club as a whole regarding your gambling issues?
Yeah, the club were good. Even Kerbishley at the time, I was going through a bad time with my gambling, and Kerbishley was there as well, and he'd come and speak to me. Everything from the manager to right at the top, they were good. They asked questions. They asked me if I needed any help, going to meetings, going to Sporting Chance Clinic, etc. So I can't fault the club and the way they acted.
Did they have to? Is it true that they lend you money as well to sort of pay people off a little bit?
There was one time when they advanced my wages. Sorry, they advanced my wages, and then I didn't get it the month after. Yeah.
And there were stories that people were turning up at the training ground needing money off you. Is that as bad as it got in terms of your addiction?
I don't like. Listen, I've talked about this hundreds of times now, and I feel like it's behind me. But yeah, it was bad, and then there was bookmakers turning up at the training ground, and I was out of control with it. I was a compulsive gambler, and it got a hold of me, and it started affecting my football. Which once it started affecting my football, I really had to do something about it.
And Stoke come in by you in January. A required fresh start for you, perhaps, is it?
Yeah, I think at that time the time was right. As much as I had an amazing time at West Ham, and it's still a club now that I support. I just needed to get away and reset myself mentally, physically, everything really. So I wasn't in a good way, and Stoke come in, obviously. The whole famous one, Paddy Power had paid out on them to go down early, 4 or 5 games into the season, and it was definitely a culture shift and the culture shock. But I ended up, I think, again 5.5 brilliant years there. That the fans really warmed to me. Again, in my first season, I got Player of the Year, and it was a really good time for me. And the supporters up there are so loyal. They really are. It's working class city, and I had a good time there.
When you were at West Ham, were you disappointed to not make the England squad at any point?
Yeah, I was. There was talk of it a couple of times. I was near it, and the same when I was at Stoke as well. But it never happened. I've obviously played for England at every level apart from senior level. So that's probably one small regret that I had. After I finished playing, is that I felt at times my form was good enough and I was good enough to get an England cap, but it wasn't to be.
Did you almost rejoin West Ham when you were back training under Allardyce and stuff? Was it ever on the cards?
My contract had finished at Stoke, and I'm still really close to James Collins now, and he was there at the time, and he'd mentioned to Sam that I wasn't at a club, and he said, "I'll get him in," and I'd been keeping myself really good shape, and so I was ready to hit the ground running when I went in to train with West Ham, and done really well for the first couple of weeks. And there was talk that they were going to offer me something. Yeah, but I just think I was nowhere near the player then that I was when I left, or the early parts of my time at West Ham. And in hindsight, it's probably best that it didn't happen. But there was talk of it at one point. Yeah.
Well, that's your journey. But a few genetic questions for you. You got any regrets from your time at West Ham?
Just the gambling aspect of it, I suppose. It was what it was, but the gambling aspect of how that affected me, especially in the time under Curbs and Zola. I still, I proved it when I went to Stoke. I still had some really good years of football in me, and I was just unfortunate I couldn't do it with West Ham.
You came from Spurs to West Ham as a player, but did you leave West Ham as a fan?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I'm still a fan now. I loved everything about the club, to be honest with you, from the fan base and the history of the club. So I fell in love with the club when I signed for them and when I was playing for them week in, week out.
But most important question, I suppose. Enjoy your time at West Ham overall.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, really enjoyed it. Some great memories I'll never forget. A really proper football club with proper fans who let you know in no uncertain terms if they're not happy with you, but if you're doing the right thing and trying week in, week out and producing a little bit of quality here and there, they'll sing your name, and that's what West Ham fans are all about.
Fantastic. Matty, thank you very much. Massively appreciate your time. And thank you for your time at West Ham as well. You were sort of one of my favourite players to watch as a left footer. It was certainly good to learn, knock it past the right back and run after it kind of thing. Yeah. But I tell you something, we miss players like you in this day and age in the Premier League. I think sometimes you do just need an out-and-out winger, if you like, something that's perhaps lacking. But Matty, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Take care and look after yourself.
Cheers. Cheers. Bye-bye.